This is Stoppage Time FC, sponsored by The Scene. Remember, if you're on Facebook, Stoppage Time FC, the group, The Scene, capital T, He, capital SCEN, Facebook fan page. Subscribe to the YouTube if you're tuned in. Notifications on. You never know we're going to jump in. We haven't been here in a while, so it's good to be back. Zach, Joe, fellas, there's a whole lot to discuss in the beautiful game since we last convened. So let's kind of just start it off, Zach. This has been as weird and wild a start to a football season as I've ever seen. I don't know. It could be COVID. I don't just know what it is. There's a lot of weird things happening. Talk about your observances of this first couple of weeks.
Man, like if you'd have told me that in the first, 4 weeks of the Premier League that we would see both City and Liverpool give up a combined 13 goals in one game, I'd have told you were crazy. And for them to do it in the same week against teams that it really shouldn't have done it. I mean, it's wild. It's wild. And it just goes to show that anything can happen. The infamous saying is on any given Sunday. In the Premier League, it's any given match day.
Yeah. This sport, obviously we love our sports here in America. But I tell people all the time, if you ever want to see the inconceivable, the weird, the strange, just things that don't make sense, football makes less sense maybe than any other sport that I can think of where things just happen. And Joe, we're gonna go swings up to you because Man City was on the wrong end of one of these weird situations. Just your thoughts on the first couple of weeks in the Premier, just what is happening?
Yeah, for personally on the City side, I was not expecting us to come away with a combined 4 points from our first three matches, especially with the teams on the schedule. I mean, if you watched any of the Leicester City, Man City game, City pretty much held the possession the whole game. They had all the chances at the first half. And then one small event in soccer can change the entire complexity of the game. And when they gave up a penalty in the first half and Leicester equalized, completely changed that course of the game. I would turn it off at halftime and went about my business the rest of the day and it turned out to be the right decision because I checked the scoreline. My buddies were texting me saying we gave up another one. And final scoreline 5-2 Leicester. I mean, Leicester's a good squad. We talked about them on our preview show, but you wouldn't expect them to get three penalties on City and turn that scoreline around. And we mentioned when we were first talking, you look at the top of the Premier League table. You got Everton, Aston Villa, and Leicester City in the top three spots. And raise your hand.
Who's at the top?
You might have heard of this team called Everton. We may have mentioned them at some point, but
vindicated.
Yeah, raise your hand if you had those three in your top three as at the first 4 weeks. Like it's just been a crazy every day because there's games on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. It seems like every day of the match week we are getting a really interesting scoreline. Another one that kind of poked out to me was Leicester after a big win against City, come up against West Ham, who's one of the bottom tier tables, and they go to lay and get beat down 3-0 after a huge win against City. So it's like
against
what's going to happen
against a squad and an organization as a whole that is literally in mass chaos.
Yep.
They are a dumpster fire that has been launched from space and they are just hurtling towards the ground. And I think it's finally going to be one of those seasons where we see West Ham relegated. They've been that team that they've skirted around it and they've gone on late runs. I don't think it's going to happen this year. Their fans are just upset. They're selling away their young talent. I'm surprised Rice is still there, to be honest.
Yeah.
Especially when Chelsea came knocking. I really thought that, money talks, and it's rough.
And then we have maybe the biggest dumpster fire of them all. And the reason they are the biggest dumpster fire of them all is because, quite frankly,
Sorry,
they
Josh.
are still the biggest thing. They are the big, other than maybe Real Madrid, Manchester United is the biggest club in the world. So when you get waxed 6-1, I don't care if there was no fans in the crowd or not. You get drilled 6-1 at home. That is noteworthy. And they are just all over the place. And like we were talking in the pre-show meeting, it's one thing it's one thing if Spurs were just going scoring great goals and nothing you could do about it. This was just elementary school defending. Harry Maguire tackles Luke Shaw in the box, which causes one goal. Harry Maguire heads the ball, hits Eric Bailly dead in the forehead. It comes back to him. He tries to head it away and heads it right to David De Gea. Like, just unbelievably bad. And I think they are in trouble.
The
And not like,
the $85 million fraud.
yeah, who won't get benched because he cost the most and probably should be benched. He's terrible. The midfield is disjointed. Like, Pogba Fernandez doesn't really work at this point, and they're trying to shoehorn this. So Manchester United is in a shambles, and despite all they spent, no matter what they say, this might not get better anytime soon.
I saw come across the rumor mill that their reports are they're reaching out to Pochettino to come in and relieve Mr. Solskjaer from his duties. So that's the media sniping and manager calls for him getting pulled is already started, and there's only
And
3 games for them.
United may not have already made that call, but the media has driven it. So now it's going to be a thing.
It's going to be a topic for sure. And whether they've done, like you said, whether they've actually reached out to him or not, whether they've even had a discussion about changing managers, the media is going to run with it, especially like you said, Ronnie, United is still, whether they've won anything recently or not, they are still cream of the crop when it comes to name recognition in clubs around the world. So,
and we'll get off United, but if you look at the next 5 matches coming out the break, don't quote me on this, but I saw it today. It's Newcastle. There's 2 Champions League games in the mix that include a road trip to PSG. Arsenal is in there somewhere. I think either City or Chelsea, one or both of you all play them in this next month. Their next 5 to 7 games is a murderer's row of games.
If they don't win that game at Newcastle,
it could get ugly very fast for them.
I'm gonna give you their lineup here real quick coming up. Right out the break, after international break, is Newcastle, it's PSG, it's Chelsea 4 days after that. Then they go to Germany for Leipzig, then Arsenal right after that. And then they go back into the Champions League, and then they have Everton after the Champions League again.
Oh, yeah, good luck with that.
Oh,
so it doesn't. There's no easy games on their schedule anytime soon.
Oh, that is a brutal stretch. And we, like you said, we're going to get off United here, but we talked about this at the beginning during the preview when they signed Donny van de Beek. I said specifically, how does he fit? Because they have too many midfielders who all play the same position. Pogba should not be a deep playing midfielder. He needs to be up top. The problem is Bruno Fernandes is there, which, don't get me wrong, Bruno's great. I mean, you take away all those penalties he's scored and his numbers don't exactly equate to as great as he is, but it doesn't take away from his quality in my eyes. I still think Bruno Fernandes is phenomenal. The problem is they all play a very similar position. And with the defense that they have, if you want to call it that, they almost have to play two holding deep lying midfielders to help, which means that you can't play one of those three midfielders we just mentioned, because you got to play Matic. And I just, man,
even he is not what he used to be as a central defensive midfielder at all.
No.
So he's not even providing a whole lot of help.
As Zach talked about, because of the setup, he has to play.
He has to. Yep, you're stuck with it.
You have to play him because you have nothing to protect this really terrible back line.
And we talked about this in the pregame show. Lindelof and Maguire might be, and like I said, I haven't gone down the entire Premier League, pairing roster of center backs. I'm still willing to say that they are in the bottom of the table as far as worst pairings.
Harry Maguire costs more than whole back lines by himself.
Yep.
But you want to talk about an even bigger fraud.
So it's going to be ugly for them. So Joe read the schedule off from the next month. This Manchester United Twitter, if you like banter and jokes and watch people in a panic, Manchester United Twitter could be really fun for the next month.
I personally am going to very much enjoy it.
I think
I don't hate it.
I am too.
I don't hate it.
I think I am too. But we talk about the other weirdness, fellas, and Zach, I'm gonna kick this over to you. Just other weird things going on.
So
we talked about the Bayern Munich invitation. 2 weeks ago, Bayern Munich got their doors blown off 4-1 randomly by Hoffenheim. I watched a little bit of Barcelona. That isn't fixed at all. Whatever agreement they came to with Messi to make him stay, that thing has not solved itself at all. They still are very slow. Like it's the most dull Barcelona team I've probably ever seen.
It's the softest Barcelona team we've ever seen.
Yeah, talk about
it. They brought in Serginho Dest, and he's now the first American to ever feature for Barcelona's first team. Who, it probably would have been Conrad, because he's been with the B squad for a hot minute. He's been training with the first team, and actually made his first team appearance in like a friendly with them. But there's no identity there. Messi is checked out. He is completely checked out. And so, this is where you would need to rely on Dembele or Luis Suarez. Okay. Well, Dembele he's not it. That's painfully obvious. He was a flash in the pan, and he's not it. And his heart's not in it. Then they turn around and they sent Suarez to Atleti.
For free.
They just said, hey, bye. And
knowing how close he was to Messi, and knowing how good of a relationship that they had, after you already alienated Messi, you're going to then send away like his best friend on the team.
Yep.
To a contender.
To a rival. Absolutely.
Speaking of that, and then Zach jumped back in, is that not the dirtiest pair of strikers in the history of football? Diego Costa and Luis Suarez.
Not matched anywhere that I can ever remember being even coming close to them too.
And truthfully, like if you look at them right now, I know they're both past their prime, but if I'm a team, I don't want to face them.
Nope.
No.
And not from the dirty aspect, just from the pure talent. Because even though, like I said, they're past their prime, they still have it. And especially in La Liga.
Yeah.
They're
not going to be fun at all for whoever they face.
No. For me, though, the big topic in La Liga is Eden Hazard. The man, 7.
Matches the shirt
140,
number.
145 million pounds is what it was. 100 million up front and 45 million in add-ons that Mariana Graskanov fleeced Madrid out of. 145 million for 7
games so far.
I think for Eden, injuries can happen to anybody, so that can happen. But I think for Eden, I think just getting the move was all he wanted.
Yep.
Because I think just to say I held up the Madrid shirt, I cost 140 million. That was the prize.
I'm a Galactico. Look at me.
It wasn't really about playing for them. It was everything leading up to playing. That was what I wanted.
That man said, "Pay me my money." And then you that just further complicates the fact that you've had Gareth Bale on the bench that entire time instead of playing Hazard, and then you turn around and you loan him back to Tottenham.
This is the weirdness of this game, right? Gareth Bale just can end up back in Tottenham. Okay. Mesut Ozil, $350 a week. We just won't play him.
Just not gonna play him.
We just won't play him. Forget even trying to make something out of this. We just won't play him. Even though Arsenal, my team, is completely devoid of creativity. We won't play him.
And Ozil, he's an enigma. When he is on, his creativity
is crazy.
I always called him the Cesc Fabregas, the German Cesc Fabregas. Like the vision that man has when he's on is unparalleled. It is lights out, head and shoulders over anyone on that roster.
Won't play.
And
they can't figure it out.
He's paying the salary
figure this out.
Gunnersaurus.
Man. Shout out Gunnersaurus, man. Hold tight, Gunnersaurus.
Real OG.
The real way. So this first 3 to 4 weeks has been wildly eventful. So I think the international break is coming at a real good time. I know a lot of people complain about it coming so early, but I think especially coming off basically no preseason, this was a good time for this. I think the first 4 weeks there was enough happening that people need to get away.
I think all the teams definitely needed that breather.
They needed time apart. So coming out of the break, Joe, for your Man City squad, what are you looking at? You think this is like, okay, a little bit of a rough start, but I'm not really tripping, or what do you think about it?
I'm not really that concerned at this point because we've been playing without Aguero and Jesus for the past 2 games, and that changes the lineup dramatically. And Aguero is back in training this week, so with the next 2 weeks layoff, that should give him some time to get some more first team training in, and that should give. Our new center back Ruben Diaz is coming in, but he's going back out for international duty. So it would have been nice to have him at the Etihad working and training with the squad. But he fit right in the first game. But it is what it is. They got to go out.
City should have been like, nah, fam. You got to stay here.
Sterling just pulled out of the English squad too for a hamstring injury. But I think that was I don't really want to be there right now, and I'd rather just take the next 2 weeks to chill. So getting a striker back, which is what we were missing badly for both of those 2 games. They created chances, but they just didn't have anybody to finish. And Sterling, as great as he is, has his moments of brilliance, but then he'll completely flub a simple, easy chance. There's a couple of times in the 2 games that I watched that one of the guys who were playing where Aguero was normally playing, and he probably would have buried some of those chances 9 out of 10 times, but the guys that were filling in for him are just not the finisher that he is. So getting him back in the fold and then getting some semblance of stability in the back line with Laporte finally coming back from his COVID issue and pairing him with Diaz and having your first choice center back pairing should go a long way for them coming back out of the international break.
Joe, let me ask you this. How much do you think you actually miss Bernardo Silva?
He is so versatile, and with now that you say Bernardo Silva or David?
Sorry, David Silva.
Right now we're missing him more than we probably should because Bernardo Silva has been out as well with the injury. So we've really only had, and then Ilkay Gundogan went out for a bit too. So we were really stuck, with Phil Foden and KDB as our two attacking midfielders pretty much. So we definitely were missing his talents right now. But when Bernardo Silva comes back full strength and then Gundogan is back in there, and now that we have actual center backs that are going to be playing back in the back line, we can move Fernandinho back up into his more natural midfield position. So we have the depth there. We've always talked about City having a staggering amount of depth at every position. We're just missing that right now, which has been part of the problem. I personally, on a personal level, I miss him a lot because he was one of the OGs when I first started watching City back in 2010. So not seeing Company leave and now Silva leave, and probably after this year, potentially Aguero heading out is going to be a definite personal note, sadness for me. So, but I think KDB, Foden, and Bernardo Silva can hold down that creative midfielder role, no problem.
Now, speaking of turnover, and people coming in, people coming out, we talk about the transfer window, which just concluded the international transfer window. You still do some things domestically, but the big window has closed. And Zach has his winner of the transfer. Now, he says it's not who we all think it is. I'm still skeptical. So I'm going to pass it to him. I'm going to see what he actually says.
Don't get me wrong. I'm very over the moon with what Chelsea's done in the transfer window. They've been lights out, especially after you factor in when they sold Eden Hazard and Alvaro Morato and a couple others. They're almost a net even, on the balance sheet, which is pretty crazy. I think they have it's like between 60 and 100 million, that they've spent. But when you factor in we talked about this in the pregame show, 6 new players to only be, plus, or I'm sorry, negative 60 to 100. That's pretty good, especially with the caliber of players that they have. But for my best transfer window winner, it's actually, and it happened on deadline day. And the reason that I picked them is their deadline day moves. And it's actually Juve. I didn't really like the Weston McKennie move, although he's fit in rather well, surprisingly. So I'll eat the crow and say that he's fit in pretty well. But to get Federico Chiesa from Fiorentina on a 2-year loan with an obligation to buy afterwards, Chiesa was Fiorentino's best player by far. And if anybody plays FIFA, you know that Chiesa was a monster last year and constantly got upgrade cards because of what he was able to do. And then they brought Douglas Costa back, which, that's huge. So I like Juve.
Yeah, the Douglas Costa move is an interesting move because, Douglas Costa, in like a Dembele sort of mode, is really talented, but has had health issues. However, if you need depth, you need somebody that's going to play 20, 25 times a year, especially when the Champions League is for Juve what this is all about. And the more bodies you have in a condensed season like this is going to be, the Douglas Costa move, to your point, is not, it's low risk too. It's not
Let me backtrack. I said that wrong. He went from Juve to Bayern. So Douglas
Oh.
Costa went from Juve to Bayern. I actually like that move because of the reasons you just pointed out, was his injuries and things like that. They brought in Chiesa to supplement where Costa is leaving. And there was a lot of rumors that Callum Hudson-Odoi was going to go to Bayern because he can't break through in the Chelsea squad. That's now null and void because Douglas Costa went back to Bayern. So sorry, I said that. I kind of got that mixed up. He
No,
went
that's
from
good.
Juve to Bayern.
Bayern just collects wide players. If you're a wide player, you got any
You got a
level
home.
wide player, Bayern Munich has a home for you at all times. They just rotate wide players, just pick any out the blue. Joe, who did you like in the transfer window?
I have a hard time not going with Chelsea based on the moves that they made, and every one of them is young, and that squad can then build around a young manager in Frank Lampard. So I think there's the strategy that they implemented on targeting young, hungry, up and coming guys. I don't think you can go wrong with what they did. And like Zach said, the net that they spent out and came in and everything is spot on with this who they sold. So I had Chelsea as the top, and really nobody did a lot on the transfer deadline day that was going to change my mind on that one, just because of the work that they put in early, because they got some of these done a while ago and knocked it out of the park, in my opinion.
Yeah, I like what Chelsea did too. I think because not only was they brought in a lot of players, but the deals make sense. Bernard Mendy is the upgrade on Kepa. That makes sense. You bring in Kai Havertz, you bring in Werner, you bring in, as Joe talked about, young talent that you can continue to grow with Lampard. And then the deal just makes sense for what you're trying to do. It's not haphazard thrown together. It's not like, and I hate to go back to them, it's not like Manchester United where you just pull Edison Cavani out of mothballs and say, hey, not only do you pull Edison Cavani out of mothballs, you give him the number 7. Anybody who knows anything about football history knows number 7 at Manchester United means something. And you pull this basically retired dude out of nowhere and just say, here, we'll give you the most iconic shirt at the club.
And the last, 4 now? The last 4 number 7 shirt wearers have all been flops. Mm-hmm. Well, if Cavani flops, it's what? Di Maria wore 7, Alexis Sanchez wore 7, and I'm drawing a blank on the other one.
Memphis Depay was 7.
Memphis Depay.
Yep.
Because at United, he didn't do it. That's why he went back to, Olympic Lyon.
Michael Owen was 7.
But
that was ugly. So I just don't understand.
You could tell Chelsea had a plan and they knew what they wanted to do. And they executed it perfectly. Man United and other squads, they just seem to want to throw money at names, and they don't really have a transfer strategy. Chelsea, they clearly did, and they spent a lot of money when people weren't spending a lot of money. They took a risk and put some money out there, which was I thought was impressive.
Now, transitioning into the bigger picture of Europe, the Champions League draw. This just shows you how these things, this sport just continues to have things going on. The Champions League draw also happened. Initial thoughts, fellas, on the Champions League draw, just kind of what stood out.
Go ahead, Joe.
On the personal note, I was really happy with the draw that I know you were too, Zach, that City got, and it wasn't too challenging. I think we had talked about our group of death choices, and it doesn't look so hot now because of the way Manchester United was playing. But at the time, I had thought Group H was going to be quite difficult. And it still could turn out to be that way if Manchester United, if they get their act right. But I think there's going to be some really awesome games. You got Bayern and Atletico paired up, so you're going to see that matchup twice in the group stage. We get to see Ajax, which is a great up-and-coming team going up against Liverpool and another team at Italy, at Atalanta, who waited a lot farther than anybody thought they would last year in the Champions League. So that's got 3 pretty quality group teams there. And then we also get Cristiano against Messi twice with Juve and Barcelona. So
that ain't the one this year.
Matchups. There's going to be some tasty matchups early on. I'm curious to see if you guys think any of the big name squads are going to struggle to get out of their group stage.
Oh, there's a couple.
They're definitely in trouble.
Who's in trouble?
United.
Oh yeah, United is one. Liverpool will have a harder time than people think.
Yep.
Ajax think about Ajax. They always have young talent who, if nothing else, they're gonna make you run for 90 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a Liverpool team that doesn't have a great amount of depth, a road trip to Amsterdam is kind of the last thing you want in the middle of a tough season. And Atlanta plays a very high. Atlanta almost plays like Liverpool in Italy. It's high press. It's up and down. It's the press. Liverpool finishing second in that group, I think, would not surprise me. And I think they may need until like match day 5 or 6 to qualify. I don't think they can walk through that group.
No, and Atlanta is not going to be scared of them either, because they played a lot of big clubs last year, and they did not park the bus when they played against City in the group stage. No. The other teams, they attacked and they played their game, and they didn't just shrink because of the opposition.
Yep, I agree. To talk on what Joe said, I actually like Bayern's group as the group of death. And much like Liverpool, I don't think Bayern walks through that. I know it's the Bayern Munich Invitational in the Bundesliga. It ain't going to be that in the Champions League. I know that they had games where they just, shredded. Look what they did to Messi. Look what they did to Chelsea. Now, granted, Chelsea's was over 2 legs and Messi was over 1 leg, but that's neither here nor there. I like, I don't have it in front of me, Jody. I don't know if you do. Is it Leipzig or is it Salzburg?
Salzburg and then Lokomotiv Moscow.
Okay.
So they do a trip out to Russia, and that's never a
trip to Russia is not fun. Yeah. And Salzburg, all those Red Bull teams, yep. They're no slouch either. So you can't walk into it just expecting to win. If it's still going to be Bayern and Atleti's. It is Atletico, right?
Yep.
Yep. It's going to be theirs to lose, but don't think you're just going to walk through and get 3 points from each one of those other 2 teams in each game. Yeah. It's not a free 6 points from both of them.
And Atleti is a notoriously hard team to deal with. And we talked about Suarez and Costa and just how annoying, just how tough they are. But Simeone teams, they're gonna tackle hard. They're not gonna just let you do what you want offensively. They're gonna you're gonna have to be able to string passes together. So that's gonna be tough. Atleti winning that group would not floor me. Like, I wouldn't be like, oh my gosh, Atleti won the group. I can very see a scenario where they win that and Bayern gets number 2, which then would make, but if Bayern is your second place team, you win your group, you're like, ugh.
Yeah.
That's what sucks. I as a Chelsea fan, and Joe talked about how he was happy with his draw. And as a whole, I'm happy with mine as well. We got Sevilla, some team in Russia or Bulgaria or somewhere. I have no idea.
Somewhere far.
Yeah. And, other than that, I mean, our draw is very, very friendly. But to think that you could have to play Bayern for winning your group, like, that's wrong. That's wrong.
You could get either Bayern or Atletico, or you could get Juventus or Barcelona as from either of those two groups as your prize for winning.
And what's in PSG's group? You know, PSG, United,
Leipzig.
They are
Leipzig.
I scrolled right through them. They are.
I don't like. Yeah.
Leipzig and then Istanbul. So that one, they're probably going to get maybe a point or two, but either way, you're still getting.
But Leipzig
is first in the Bundesliga right now.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, Leipzig. If you are a team in chaos like Man United is, Leipzig is a terrible matchup.
Yep.
Especially away. The first match is away. It's in Germany. That's not good.
And that's the one that's right in the middle of all the fun Premier League games that they're going to be playing too.
Yeah, like I think they play PSGs in that group that we talked about. And as much as people, and I know Neymar is a popular figure to have your jokes with, if you're Manchester United and you have to see Neymar and Mbappe with that back line, it could get out of control
real quick,
very quickly.
And they've shown that they don't have the mental toughness to recover after a lapse or an early goal from the opposition. It's going to be the floodgates are going to open up.
Yeah, so Champions League kicking off. So now international break, fellas. So now this is another thing that makes soccer very weird. So we have the Nations League, which is like the pseudo qualifiers for Euro. Am I getting this right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Glorified friendlies right now.
Right, but it's pretty much a friendly. So is the U.S. national team playing? I know this was a topic that we definitely want to hit. U.S. national team, are they playing during the international break?
I honestly don't know if they have any friendlies scheduled. I don't think so.
Okay. But what we can talk about though is we talked about McKinney to Juventus.
Mm-hmm.
Christian Pulisic is obviously playing in Chelsea. Dest who playing for Barcelona. Is this sort of, now obviously they still have to win a big tournament, which is clearly what the next thing for the United States. Is this sort of a pseudo golden generation? Because you're seeing U.S. players now playing for major clubs. Like it's not just everybody in the MLS. Like you're seeing guys playing for major teams in Europe. Are we at sort of a high point with the U.S. national team?
This is the golden generation. There's no doubting that. When you look at the players, not only are they playing in the best leagues, they're starting on some of the best teams in the world. And you look at even fringe players like, let's take Chris Richards for a second. He just made his first start for Bayern. And Thomas Muller went on record saying, if I didn't screw it up, Chris Richards would have had 2 assists on his debut for Bayern. So you look at Gio Reyna, who is now a starting figure at Dortmund. And Erling Haaland has said that, Reyna is a key to his success. So you look at Pulisic, you look at Reyna, you look at guys like Chris Richards, even fringe players like Josh Sargent is doing well in Bundesliga. This is it. The Olympics are it for a barometer for the U.S. men's national team. If they don't make some noise during the Olympics, I don't know. I don't know where they go from here.
And they got Anthony Robinson also made his first start for Fulham in the Premier League too. So he at left back. So we have more and more guys that are getting run in the major leagues. So I think there was another guy too. Ulysses, I don't know how to say his last name. Yanez. He got a start in Wolfsburg or in Dutch league. So I mean, I'm looking at an article right now, and there's just name after name of guys that are playing in big name clubs and for all over Europe, and they're getting significant minutes, which is great. For the men's national team, I don't think it's a talent issue at this point. I think it's more they don't have
execution.
They don't have right now. I still don't know what their preferred formation is going to be. What is their mentality? What are they going to key on to be the staple of their team? When we had Dempsey and Donovan and all those guys, we knew that we might not score a lot of goals, but we're going to defend, and they're going to work their behinds off and give everybody a run in a tough match, whether it was real pretty soccer or not. But right now, I just don't think there's an identity for the team, even though we have a lot of really talented individual players. I'm not sure if Berhalter is a guy that's going to turn them into a team instead of just a collection of individuals.
I agree with you, Zach. I think with all this talent now, it has to turn into wins. Not 8-0 versus the Dominican Republic or 6-0 versus Trinidad and Tobago on some random night. Like, they have to start turning this into Olympic deep runs in the Olympics. Qualifying for the World Cup should not be the task that it has become the last two times. Shout out to Taylor Twyman, who had one of the most infamous rants in the history.
Oh my gosh, that was a good one.
Of Sports Center. They should be a player the next two major tournaments. And with all that talent, we talk about Gio Reyna and these guys. Like, if you're getting big minutes for Dortmund and Bayern and Barcelona, you're now, to me, it's an expectation at these tournaments now. And so I agree with you, Zach. I think now, if this is the golden generation, this is the time.
Gone are the days where you have, one or two players who are, playing, like when Pulisic was at Dortmund. He was the cream of the crop because he was getting some minutes at Dortmund.
Right.
That's not the standard anymore. You are no longer a given. I'll even take Zach Steffen, who is second at City. I would take all those cup games over, taking like an Andre Blake who's playing in the MLS. For me, it's different. It's a different level. It's a different game. So I would much rather see the national team made up of guys that are in the first couple leagues of Europe than seeing this. Oh, we need to take MLS players. No, you don't. You need to take the best players. Now, you don't need to. You still have to make them fit. They have to fit in the right formation, and that's going to be on Berhalter, and we'll see if that's going to be his Achilles heel. But I like, speaking of, you were talking about Vincent Kompany earlier. Chelsea just loaned out Matt Miazga to Anderlecht. So for Matt Miazga, that's huge because he's always been that, maybe he's going to be the center back of the future for the national team, maybe not. Going and learning under Vincent Kompany is probably the best situation for any men's national soccer team center back.
It's like they're going to the if you look at some of the top national teams across the world, like if you're not playing in a big time league, you can't play for the national team for some countries. Like if you're not playing Bundesliga, Premier, La Liga, Serie A, you can't play for this country. And I think it seems like that's what the U.S. hopefully is going to. We don't care about what you do for the Vancouver Whitecaps. That doesn't really matter. If you need to be playing Dortmund, you need to be playing in England, playing playing at the highest level to make this team, which I'm with that.
Yep. I like Jossie Zardes, and being a Crew fan, I'm happy with him. I don't dislike him as the number 9 for the US team, but I don't, it's not like he's going against top level talent that just really inspires me going forward.
So we getting ready to wrap up, but next time on Stoppage, we're gonna peel back the football curtain a little bit. We talk a lot about current events and what's going on. We're gonna do a little teaching next time. Know your role. Shout out to The Rock. Know your role is coming to the scene very soon with my man Zach. Joe and I probably contribute something to that too. Giving some of our newbies just the basics, just of what happens on a football pitch. Because for a lot of people, they don't watch it because they just don't understand what's going on. So we're gonna have Know Your Role, helping you understand what's going on. I think we'll talk a little bit about some of the business things, and not necessarily real detail, but we talk a lot about money in this episode. We talk about Harry Maguire, 85 million, and Eden Hazard, 140 million. What does that mean? Because it's not salary, folks. It's not what it means. So we're gonna talk some football 101, know your role, transfers, kind of what that actually means, so that you have a better understanding of why these things matter. But remember, Stoppage Time FC, if you're on Facebook, the Scene fan page on Facebook, YouTube, subscribe, notifications on, Ron, Joe, Zach, Jerm behind the scenes, Mo behind the scenes. Thank y'all for tuning in. Stoppage Time FC, we out.